Save America interviewed Harris staffers to talk about what went wrong in the election. I'll tell you what, I'm going to need this.
Something that I think, as evidenced by the answer on
this is a section, I'm only going to watch this one section. This is a section called Should Harris Have Tried to Separate Herself from Biden More? I've seen some clips going around on Twitter. It's made me want to pull my fucking hair out, so let's see.
The view she was at least personally uncomfortable with?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I think people, when they vote for president, want to vote about the future. And they saw in the vice president someone they didn't know a lot about a background. So, you know, who she was, what she stood for, what she did as vice president. So in every step of what we were trying to do, we had to tell a pretty robust story in one ad or one policy rollout or one event that you don't often have to do because of the time we were in. But I do think that we really focused from the get-go on how she was different than everyone else, different than Joe Biden, different than Donald Trump. And at the end of the day,
I don't understand actually how she was different than Joe Biden in any other way than tone for some of the major things that people actually cared about. But I mean, like, I do think that she was behind the scenes likely more left-leaning on things like Palestine than Joe Biden, which is really what I cared about. Because everything else seemed to be roughly the same. But, like, let's be frank. Joe Biden's economy stuff, it's looking better. It's going better. But obviously everyone is still feeling the effects of, like, price gouging and shit. So, which I don't think is going to get better. I think it's going to get worse, and people are going to really hate their new leadership.
Hey, the choice was her versus Donald.
She the staffer? She's one of them, yeah. All of the other three on there, I believe, are the other staffers. Lib policies need a freaking whiteboard and a backstory. That's why they can't compete with hateful rhetoric. It's crazy.
Donald Trump. And at the same time, you know, she was very clear that she was a new generation of leadership, but it wasn't just like a statement. It was.
As a lib, I think that we should not change anything, but also do is fly Confederate flags. That will show how different we are. Yeah, there you go.
Here's what I need to focus on. Her first policy announcements were economic, talking about housing, talking about lowering costs, understanding that people really didn't feel like things were progressing in the way that they wanted to. The right track, wrong track data.
Yeah. Like, listen to the word. Like, do you hear yourself?
But how she brought her own point of view to thinking about housing.
It's not really stuff. Listen to this. Ugh. These people should not be running campaigns. It's just so obvious.
Sandwich generation. That was probably her biggest applause line. One of the best testing things that we did. That wasn't a poll tested. Let's work on this poll, this data to tell us this is the right issue we should go talk about. That was about her life and also
to tell us this is the right issue. This should just. I know she said that's not what we did, but that means that there are things that they do that with. And which I knew, right? But like to listen to them talk about it, it's like, do you just not know what's going on? And they don't. They don't know what's going on. They don't feel it the way we feel it. It's just so stupid, dude. And no, we've only just begun.
Also understanding what people in the country were really needing. So I think that in a 107-day race, it is very difficult to do all the things you would normally do.
They're really going to hide behind we only had 107 days. Dog, it's Donald Trump. People are looking for a reason not to vote for the guy. And he still came away with the most populist fucking message. Because they have a better propaganda wing, and you guys don't know what people like because you aren't fucking normal. This is the problem, man. They're detached. They're all upper middle class at lowest.
In a year and a half.
Terminally navel gazing at data instead of using brains, ears, and reasoning to make decisions is exactly why liberals are such losers. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No!
2 years. But I think wherever we had an opportunity, the vice president did put her own stamp on this and did it in a deeper way than I think probably we got the kind of full breadth of coverage on it. Of course, you know, when you have a administration that a lot of progress has been made and you're part of that progress, it's complicated when you're asked questions in certain ways. But at the end of the day, I think she really, every time she turned, talked to a voter, every time she was out on the stump, she really leaned into her own vision. But the headwinds were tough.
The headwinds. It's like they sleep in the New York Times editorial column. They're so insular. What progress? The progress of undoing some of the fuckery, so it didn't feel like progress for any of us. The progress was not felt. You know what would be good? Fucking actually addressing price gouging instead of campaigning on it. But not Kamala Harris necessarily being in charge of it. Like the Democrats in general. Like they're on both sides of this.
Also, though, of course, we lost. So I'm not here to say that didn't happen. We would much rather not have that happen. But where she campaigned, we did way better than the rest of the country. And Donald Trump did worse, to the point that you were just talking about with
where she campaigned. Yeah, I guess her rallies were definitely good.
Pluff. The idea that people have just a well-constructed, already baked-in idea about Trump and they don't need to learn anymore is just complete fallacy. I mean, his numbers are stronger today than they have ever been.
Yeah.
And that was critical for us. And we also believe this race was not just about Kamala Harris. It was Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And we had to set that choice and that frame up. And I think that we were able to, anywhere we campaign in all 7 of these states, where Donald Trump, by the way, campaigned too. He did worse.
They just keep talking about him.
And we did better. And we did make real progress against these national headwinds. If in every other state but the battlegrounds, there was a negative 8-point shift to the right, in the battlegrounds, there was only 3. So we needed it to be better than that. And perhaps if we had more time, we could have done that. But I think that's fundamental, that when people...
Perhaps with more time. It's not time. Frankly, I wish all campaigns were 100 days. That should be the limit. I don't need a year. Give me 100 days. Then we vote. I'm in.
Learn more about her, understood what she stood for, where she came from, and what her vision was. They responded well to that, and they responded in a favorable way, especially in contrast to, a point of view that Donald Trump will be worse. And I think that's playing out right now.
And Dan, on the Biden question, we of course got that everywhere. We went.
I mean, you literally shouldn't even be able to announce that you're running until 100 days out. And then there's a primary month 1. And then there's debates months 2 and 3, until we whittle down to whatever. And then we should have ranked choice voting. There should be like fucking 4 or 5 candidates, honestly. Ban political ads for a week or 2 before voting. Oh, man. That would be great. I'm sure we can trim it down. Let's get a shot clock involved. This is sports references. Never mind, chat. This falls flat for my audience. We get the pitch clock going. The MLB has cut games down like an hour. They've cut like almost a quarter of the time out of a game, maybe even a third. It's awesome.
And we knew what the data was. We knew we had to show her as her own person and point to the future and not try to rehash the past.
Point to the future. We knew what the data was. Look at them. Listen to them. With their notebooks and in their tablets. God damn it. People want healthcare. You didn't mention fucking healthcare at all. If she would have run on healthcare, I bet it would have moved the fucking needle. She didn't run on that shit. She didn't even run on weed. She tweeted it once. Nothing. Cool. Can we get the booing stadium back? No.
But she also felt that she was part of the administration. And unless we said something like, well, I would have handled the border completely differently, we were never going to satisfy anybody. So
why we were never going to satisfy anybody? So why do you not think she would have wanted to handle the border differently? Huh? Do you think that was perfect? Do you think you're doing a good job at the border? Come on. Listen to yourself.
We did talk about things like she's a different generation. Most of her career is from outside of Washington, not inside Washington. So she knows a lot of the best ideas are from across the country.
Cool.
Her career has been about reaching across the aisle, finding common sense ways to get things done. It's
the middle, common sense with the Republicans.
Not been based in ideological politics.
Fucking what? I have an ideology. Okay, my politics are ideological. Okay, and the ideology is human beings, us, all of us. We deserve good stuff. We deserve it. Okay, we have built out of nothingness grand society. Look at all its splendor, its lights and its flashy things. We can provide everybody with their needs and still ball out all the time. We can have the best shit ever. We can just do it, man. We can literally choose to do it. I could go on a huge rant about all the things. I was thinking about how much better it would be if we helped enrich everybody in our hemisphere instead of shitting on them. We have Central and South America that we just shit on constantly and try to destabilize instead of just like working with them. Because if they're doing good and we're doing good, we're all doing good. You know what I mean? Let's just all do good together. Easy. Nope.
All of these things, we were trying to tell a story and give the impression that she was different without pointing to a specific issue.
Let's listen to what the fuck she just said again. Top Harris campaign staffer. Fucking what?
And give the impression that she was different without pointing to a specific issue.
Huh? What do you think? You're gonna pull a fast one? Huh? Look, Americans are dumb, but holy shit, that is like that's pretty fucking stupid. You're gonna get panned for this forever. Look at her. She's like, why did you say that out loud?
Can I ask this? Why not a specific issue? Is it something she was unwilling to do? You worried it would feel disingenuous, or
Great follow-up question. Yeah, why?
Because she felt like she was part of the administration, so why should she look back and cherry pick some things that she would have done differently when she was part of it?
Okay. Guess what that means? Bad candidate. She can't even criticize the stuff she's done herself. Look, anybody with any self-respect at all is criticizing their own work, okay? As a bit of a creative fella every once in a while, I'm highly critical of my own shit. You gotta be real with yourself. If you can't be real with yourself, you can't be fucking president. What the fuck?
Fuck bicycles!
This is the problem with Donald Trump. He can't fucking assess himself. Neither can Joe Biden, and apparently Kamala Harris can't either. I have a slogan we can chant to the Dems and the Libs. Fire them all. Yeah, they're ridiculous.
And she had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. And, if we had said, just imagine this. You've been on plenty of campaigns. Imagine if we said, well, we would have taken this approach on the border. Imagine the round of stories coming out after that of people saying, well, she never said that in a meeting, or what?
Who gives a fuck? You think I give a fuck about that? You were worried about gossip in Washington? Of course you fucking were, because that's where you are. And you think that's such a big deal. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, by the way, no specific mention of an approach at the border. You know what I would be doing? Hey, people who want to come over here, they want to do that because stuff's bad on the other side of the border. So first thing we got to do is figure out how to get people out of these fucking facilities and into just real life. Preferably where they want to go, which is here. But you can monitor that situation, whatever. And also, why don't we work with our neighbors and try to figure out how to fix their problems? Do you guys need anything? Like, what's the problem? And frankly, the problem is America produces an insane amount of firearms and consumes an insane amount of drugs. And those two things funnel right into the cartels. And it's just like, we could do one of two things. You can like, oh God, I'm on a rant again. Fuck it. The liberals, I'm trying to fix the border. And they're saying we don't have any ideas on it. I'm a guy right here. Make me president right now. Everyone redo. I'll rant in my living room. Well, it's not in my living room. I'll rant in my office. We can move to the living room. Me versus Donald Trump. Let's go.
What meeting when she said this? Or I remember when she did that. And it was just...
Who cares?
It wasn't going to give us what we needed because it wouldn't be a clean break. It would be, days upon days in a limited time window that we had of dealing of who, what, when, where.
What? Just make a break. Disagree with Joe Biden. It's fine. He's old. We don't care. You're like, yeah, I was vice president. I wasn't president. If I was president, I'd do some different things. That's why I'm running now. As president, here are the things that I would have done that I didn't have the opportunity to do when I was vice president. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Number 1, expand the Supreme Court. Number 2, Free healthcare, executive order. That's not going to work.
So the best we could do, and the most that she felt comfortable with, was saying, like, look, vice presidents never break with their presidents. The only time in recent memories when Pence broke with Trump after Trump stormed the Capitol.
Cool. I hate liberals. They're just so brain dead. What? This is the people that were in her ear running the campaign. This is why they lost. This woman, I assume this guy as well, and this lady over here, these are three of the people who have driven the fucking Harris campaign into the ground. Obviously, and Kamala Harris is to blame too, because she was like, I don't want to move in any certain direction. Just so stupid.
So Biden's not.
They call that the murder exemption. If the president tries to murder you, you can break. Yes.
If you are, ripping up the Constitution, trying to overturn an election, people.
Fuck that shit. I want to run as a Democrat on a fuck Democrats ticket. I'm only running as a Democrat, so I'm a lefty, but fuck Democrats.
Die. Then you could break with your president. But absent that, vice presidents stick by their presidents. And she wasn't willing to, change that precedent for whoever the future president-vice presidential partnership would be, because it would mean a whole, different set of problems, as if we don't have enough problems in our democracy right now.
What? I'm just going to... Sorry, I was hoping if you guys beat the shit out of me for a second that maybe the brain cells dislodged would make me forget what she just said, but it's okay.
So unless we were willing to say, Biden said green and she said blue on any particular issue, we're never really going to satisfy that. So
satisfy what? Does she disagree with stuff we don't like about Joe Biden? Can we not refine the presidency a little bit? Huh? I really think this is super dumb. Oh my God. I'm glad we don't listen to whole podcasts like that. I wouldn't be able to get through it.
So our focus was, let's look to the future. Let's describe her and her approach to things. Let's use policies, future-looking policies, to demonstrate that difference. But in the end, we've all seen the data. Too many people thought that she'd be a continuation.
No.
Yeah, because she didn't separate herself, dude. We've seen the data. Are you going to listen to it? You know what they say, if it's broken, change nothing. That's right.
Which on the economy was, the incumbent killer.
Quentin, in the post-election analysis, there's been a ton of focus on the very ubiquitous trans ad that the Trump campaign spent tens of millions of dollars on. There have been sort of two strains of thought of this. One, the sense that her position and the Democratic Party position on trans-related issues were one of the reasons why we lost, but also real questions about why the campaign decided not to respond to the ad. Specifically, my understanding from reporting, at least, is that you guys tested a bunch of responses and they didn't work.
Because you're liberals and you don't believe it. This is the problem with liberals. They adopt trans rights stuff and slogans to virtue signal. Like, people like Sargon of Akkad are correct about certain types of liberals, where they're like, oh, they're just virtue signaling, they're just fucking, rainbow squad, and they don't actually give a shit. And then everybody else who's actually in the know gives a shit, and they just fuck it. You know what I mean? They just fuck it up. Liberals co-opt this shit and drive it into the ground. Stand on fucking principle. You don't have to be trans to be pro-trans rights. Trans rights are a freedom of expression issue. End of. Freedom of expression in the United States, you can do whatever you want, man. You can do whatever you want. It's yourself, it's your body, it's your life. If you are happy expressing yourself in a way that I wouldn't express, why? I don't get to fucking tell you not to. It doesn't matter what my sensibilities are. It's irrelevant. It's freedom. We should run on freedom, and we don't. Because the liberals don't believe in it. The liberals believe in power being sort of spread out amongst rich people and the elites who can handle it. They're kind of like philosopher kingsers. They're kind of like, oh, only a certain type of people can be in charge of the government. Tell you what, they're giving it to fucking anybody nowadays.
Tell me your thinking there and what role you think that ad and those issues actually played in the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's important to put everything into context.
Don't say something stupid, please. Don't say something stupid about trans rights, please. Everybody stay woke right now at this table here on Pod Save America. Stay woke, everybody.
Very well established the time frame. And it's honestly a lot shorter than 107 days, but we had 3 core objectives to the paid media.
Dude, they keep hiding behind the 107 days. Fuck you. It doesn't matter.
It was to define the vice president. It was to defend her on incoming attacks, and a lot of these attacks have been baked in for the past 3.5 years. While she was the vice president, they were attacking her. She was at negative 20 something on immigration. We got that down to negative 10.
Cool, negative 10. We got it down to negative 10. Great work, everybody. Nobody liked it still, but less.
Trump had a positive 22-point advantage on the economy. We got that down to 7. And we had to respond to those things. And when you sort of looked at the core issues, aside from the attacks, like trans issues are just at the bottom for voters. The economy, inflation, crime, immigration are the top issues. They were also some of the issues that she was getting attacked on.
Crime and immigration.
And to the element of sort of defining her and doing it in a way that sort of fit within what you're trying to do, there's a direct approach that you can take to anything, and then there is an approach that you can take that accomplishes 2 of the 3 objectives. A lot of the stuff that we did, such as talking about her prosecutorial background, and then saying that she went after transnational gangs, cartels, it was to push back pseudoli on the immigration attacks that were coming at her, as well as credentialing her background on things that were absent and standalone of the Biden administration. We did.
Listen to these nerds. Well, this really played well on a certain focus group. The data we have on this is shut up. Call them fucking stupid. Tell everybody that Donald Trump is stupid and that you're gonna give them health care, and you win. Stay fun. Stay loose. Be populist. Actually give a shit. Throw Joe Biden under the bus. You don't need his old ass. You do not need him. Oh, these guys are so stupid.
Did a lot of stuff about her record as AG, her record as a prosecutor, not as vice president, because it also allowed her to stand alone separate from the Biden administration. On the trans attack, obviously it was a very effective ad at the end. I ultimately don't believe that it was about the issue of trans. I think that it made her seem out of touch. And it was sort of a pseudo-economic ad underneath it, because he was saying you're going to pay for it with taxpayer money. And it was in her own words. And that's something. And
it was in her own words. Look at her. She's so mad. She's like, I fucking hate trans people so much. I told her not to take trans people's side. Yeah. The trans ads, I don't think move the fucking needle for a single person. No one gives a fuck.
He tested a ton of responses to this, direct responses, and none of them ever tested as well as basically her, talking about what she would do, to Jen's point, the future, the type of president that she would be. There were
none of them test well. Trans people are real. They get to express themselves. It's a freedom issue. I want you to have more freedom, including economic freedom. I want you to not have to pay for health care or housing or education. You're going to have more money in your pocket to spend on things that you like instead of things that you need. Because we in America, we take care of the things that you need. You need freedom, you need life, and you need happiness, and you can have all of them here in America. Look at that. I spun that. I'm high. Maybe you guys should smoke some weed every once in a while. I don't know. Like, that was just the rough draft of this shit. Imagine if I had billions of dollars to refine my message. Give me $1 billion right now. George Soros, where the fuck have you been?
Elements of it where we did try to say,
smoking again.
And we put ads on television of her saying, you've seen all the negative attacks against me, and try to bottle it up, because I also think you have to think about the entire sentiment when you're running a paid campaign. And the trans ad, I think because of the content, a lot of people felt like it was much bigger than what it was. But to put that into context, Team Red, meaning Trump and all the super PACs that were spending on Trump's behalf, that was 7% of their total ads was on that issue.
Was that specific? I think it was
specific.
2 ads, right?
Yeah.
But they ran it for every fucking sporting event, so everyone was watching during those periods of time. I saw it on sports ads. I like every single game. I saw
there was the one with Charlotte.
Fucking trans stuff, and then I saw her ad going like, "I was taking down transnational gang." I don't care about any of it. Tell us what you're going to do for us.
Yep.
And it was all Trump. So Trump spent, 37% of his, 200 million on that ad. But Trump wasn't the only spender. We were getting hit across the board. And so you have to take into account what all the super PACs are doing and play off of that. And I think that's what Trump was doing. His super PACs were hitting us on the economy, immigration, and crime. And Trump even started hitting us on immigration. And I think the veracity of which we came out of the gate and responded to that, they weren't expecting that from us. And then they backed off of that. And at that point, they started going into it. And so
They backed off of it because we took a far right-wing approach to the border as well. And they're like, okay, well, they did our job for us and we don't need to do it anymore. Huh? You just acquiesce the position? Super fucking stupid.
it is easy to say with the kind of resources that we raised, we should have been able to do everything. But that's not the case. You have to make decisions in the time frame that we were in this race.
Nah, you couldn't get me off my message. Holy shit. This is bullshit.
We had to choose.
I genuinely
and we chose to focus more of our attention on one, driving down Trump, because that was not being done in our ecosystem on our side. And it was incredibly important that we did that, as well as defining her. And so if we spent this entire race, and not to be defensive about it at all, but if we spent this entire race pushing back on immigration attacks or crime attacks and pushing back against trans attacks, at what point are we bringing Trump down and or introducing the vice president on our own terms? We're playing on their field. And I think that that was ultimately what went into it. But again, it wasn't something that we missed. It's just all of our testing told us that the approach that we were taking of her being more positive and talking about the economy and what she would do was a better tactic.
Not to be sort of overly nerdy about it, but that 7% is total money spent, not number of ads run.
Yes. Yes.
Totally. So it's higher than that in terms of ads run, because it was candidate side ads, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
probably like, do you know?
But we did, I mean, I would just add, we did respond. What our testing showed, and
what our testing
there's
showed.
no easy answers to this.
Yeah, of course.
But
what our testing showed. Just be demonstrably true. Just be correct. Seriously, trans rights are so easy.
You know, we looked at this a lot, and we...
Hey, do you want to live? Sure. Do you want to do it in a way? Yes, naturally. Then do. Done. Live. Don't care how. Frankly, I would like America to be a place of not diversity, like for the sake of it, which is definitely what liberals want, or lack of diversity for the sake of it, which is definitely what white nationalist Republicans want. But just whatever. I want the natural diversity that happens when you let human beings free from the shackles of the grind, man. Like free to just like pursue maybe not 100% happiness every fucking day of their lives, but like more of it. Just like as much as we can get right now. Think about it. I think people would be fun, goofy, expressing themselves in all sorts of different ways. More music, more art. That'd be lovely.
You know, and she never got directly asked about it, but was, you know, obviously something we looked at in responding there. But we did respond.
I want Cuban restaurants in every town. Bro, I used to live in Florida, so the Cuban restaurants were like so good. There's this place that used to make a sandwich. It was a tripleta, and it was like chicken, beef, and pork. And it was like all their Cuban style, and then it was just with cheese, and then on the bread, and it was so good. And I haven't had one in like 15 years, and I still think about it. I still think about it all the time.
For the people that were getting this on digital, and we did a ton more digital than the other side did, but we definitely threw out ads to make sure anyone that was getting these directly, we would be engaging with them with a little bit more specific content. Obviously, she spoke to some of this in the Fox News interview and the Trump administration oversight during this period. But we saw that we could neutralize the ad, but we couldn't actually put points on the board for us if we responded
Points
in
on the
kind. So then you
board.
really have a question. People don't know her. They
Netfox, I found it.
need to know more about who she is, what she stands for. They're concerned about the economy. They're concerned about immigration, and we need to push down Trump's numbers. So how do you fit all of that in?
So how do you fit all that in? So just be correct about trans people. What the fuck? Huh? What, bro? I'm not trying to run a flea flicker here. Points on the board, buddy. I live in Florida and have a really good Cuban sandwich shop down the road from me, top tier shit. I used to live in Merritt Island, Florida, and I don't remember what the place was called, but it was in Cocoa, just across the bridge.
And what we tested showed us that ads that were much more, as Quentin is saying, on the economy or other issues that people cared more about actually had better response for our testing than head-to-head. So, as we looked at this, the Trump side didn't close on this issue. Obviously, economy was far more effective, and we had to really play the game there, and we had a lot of work to do, and we were successful to a point.
Play the game there. Address the actual flaws with the policies that have been going on. Capitalists. They're gonna ruin everything.
But that's sort of the balance that we had. And while we had a lot of resources in a short amount of time, we were also trying to think about what does a person receive. We looked at certainly testing, but we're looking at our qualitative, and a lot of people thought it was very political. They thought it was
so much testing, so many statistics. This is part of the liberal thing too, and we know what it kind of is in that pandering sort of like that Hillary Clinton phenomenon of I'll just go with whatever I think is the most is polling most popularly, and these are similar fucking people that were in the Hillary campaign. I wouldn't be surprised if all or most of these people weren't on the Hillary campaign or around it. Just so stupid. Look at his face. You don't look happy about any of this information.
It was over the top. They had different kind of points of view that didn't really anchor it as a vote mover. But I know it anecdotally had a lot of attention, and they played it in places that we saw it and we monitored it as we went.
And I would just add, Dan, so both
where'd this guy come from?
Campaign.
I guess if we watched the beginning, we would have known he was here.
And super PACs. There was a lot of national ads. So I think if you're sitting in California or Texas or Florida,
I've never listened to a pod save America. You know what I'm gonna do? I want to get through. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. Just a skosh.
See this ad. You don't see any of our responses, right? So in the battleground states, her talking. In a very common sense way, in a very practical way, whether it be about immigration, whether it be about the economy, was our best defense because this was less about trans than it was about priorities and being out of the mainstream. So I think these voters in the battleground states, both through ads and through seeing her doing local interviews, and I think that's one of the reasons you had such a difference between the battleground states and the non-battleground states is people knew her better, number one. Number two, as Jen said, it's very easy these days to understand who has experience in ads. So we were feeding a lot of digital ads to people who might have saw that spot. But, at the end of the day, we were spending a lot of time with voters in these battleground states, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And this trans ad was not driving vote. I mean, the most effective ad, Quentin, I think they ran was not that, it was the Bidenomics ad, right? Because that was kind of core to people's concern. It was like, well, maybe you're not change, you're defending an economic program that I don't think's helped me. Listen, I think we are very proud of what Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Democrats did to help us dig out of the pandemic, but people weren't feeling it. So that was...
Yeah, people weren't feeling it. And why weren't they feeling it? Frankly, they could have cut some checks or something and spiced up our lives a little bit. But it didn't matter. I mean, they fucked it. There's no help in the fucking Biden liberal style people.
Is more effective. So I think in many respects, my concern here as we think about the future is...
I saw so many fucking Kamala ads. Holy shit.
If there's a belief that if only we had responded to this trans ad with national and huge battleground state ads, we would have won. I don't think that's true, number one. Number two, I think there's also...
I don't think so either, but I do think your response matters. They wanted to make it about trans people really bad, probably.
A fact pattern here. So if we could have just said that's a lie, it's not anything she's ever believed. She was on tape. Surgery for trans for people who want to transition in prison was part of the Biden-Harris platform in 2020. It was part of what the administration did, right? We also saw a column.
But it sounds like you're against it, man. I don't care. I mean, have all the health care. Everyone should have health care, including prisoners.
Allred and Sherrod Brown, both who ran good races, kind of directly responded to trans attacks. And in our view, you're playing on your opponent's side of the field. I understand why they felt they needed to do that in those states. So to Quentin's point, you have a set of things you're trying to get done. It doesn't mean that you're in such a tunnel that when something comes at you that you don't, Jen, Quentin, Stephanie, I don't know, dozens of hours on this. Like, what should we do? How are voters responding to it? Maybe hundreds of hours on it. So we took it very seriously. But
just these 4 people, huh? Never mind. He's to blame as well. He's just not in the room.
Wasn't something at the end of the day. What matters in an election is,
but why are you the one spending dozens of hours on it? You haven't tried to fucking chat with anybody?
Is something causing someone to behave differently, either who they vote for or whether they vote? And our sense was in the battleground states, this was not driving vote behavior to the same extent like the economy was generally, even immigration. So I think that it's important to understand, I think, that we were very much in voyeuristic listening mode here in terms of how are voters processing this. And in the battleground states, what we got from voters, that doesn't seem like her. Like, she seems sort of mainstream and normal, number one. It's a political attack and we trust it. So I think in many respects, Democrats who live outside of battleground states would see this ad and were convinced it was the thing that cost us the election. But I think in the battleground states, it was a different brew.
Well,
I don't think anyone thinks that this is the why. I think this is scapegoating. The same thing liberals did night of, when everyone knew. They were like, "Oh, we got to throw the Mexicans under the bus because look at the Hispanic vote." And then the liberals were like, "I can't wait till you get deported." It's like, oh, okay, so you were racist the whole time? You must be a Joe Biden fan. It's just like, same shit.
also the last point I'll make on this too is
She lost Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Yeah, and I think she would have won with Michigan, at least with Palestine rhetoric that was, real.
that I think, again, to Pluff's point about it moving vote, I think that the Trump campaign knew that too. And I think that the way in which they targeted this ad, they were trying to, I think, make our job harder with black voters. I'm just going to say it point blank. And I think that specifically with black men, ultimately we got the same amount of the vote share that President Biden got with black men, and we increased among black women. But when you look at where Trump was running this ad, it was in Philadelphia, it was in Atlanta, and then the outer markets where there wasn't as many diverse voters or black voters, they weren't doing this. We saw.
I saw it all the time in my area. And maybe that's true because there are more black people that live here than white people.
Them targeting this in the mailboxes of black voters, black male voters. So there was this theory out there that we were struggling with black men, and I think that while we were doing the work to try to...
I don't think throwing black men under the bus here is the case, though. I still think this is an economy thing.
Make sure that wasn't the case, and we saw that consolidation come back after President Biden got out of the race.
I think
that Trump and them weren't using this ad to move vote share as much. I think that they were using this ad to try to make our job of getting these voters back or consolidating them. And I think ultimately, if you look at it from that metric, it wasn't effective. But I think, again, the content of it and, getting it from the way it was talked about in the press and narrated about, this sort of earned echo chamber around these things could have much more of an impact on them than the money that's put behind them. And I think that this trans ad is one of those, because if you look at how Trump was targeting it, it didn't move those voters he was targeting, to Pluff's point. But I think it did make our job of sort of trying to get in front of them and making us seem like we knew what they were going through and we were focused on their problems much more difficult.
Because you don't know what they're going through and you didn't focus on their problems. Easy. You didn't focus on them. You were like, hey, Liz Cheney's in the house. And everyone was like, boo. But I'm glad a Republican is voting for her. Maybe that gives me some hopium.
And so that's
maybe other Republicans will. And then they were just like, okay, let's huff on only that. We're like, well, what if we did good stuff, though? I'm fine if bad guys want to switch teams and have a change of heart, but I'm not counting on it.
How I sort of see it, but I don't think it was moving the vote.
And I mean, where we saw the first indication of what Quentin is talking about is when Charlemagne started talking about it. Yeah. And that was when, we clued in that, okay, so their strategy isn't to pull in new voters to them, is to mess with us.
And a day after Trump took the clip of Charlemagne, ran the exact same ad and just put Charlemagne at the opening. And so he had a black man talking about it at the beginning and then tried to do it and then started serving it the exact same way. And so,
And that's when we had been doing the research to try to figure out what the actual policy was, where does this come from, and discovered that it was the Trump policy also. And tried to push that out there. The New York Times wrote about it.
It was a Trump policy also, which just makes you sound transphobic too, So you're so stupid. It's because you are transphobic or you don't give a fuck, which is the functionally same thing.
We tried to force a discussion on it. It didn't ultimately get going. She did get asked about it on Fox News. Her response was that was the Trump policy as well. We're going to follow the law. But ultimately, there wasn't enough earned media on that piece, and we certainly weren't going to run ads on that this was a Trump policy.
Oh, my God. I have good news and bad news. The good news is it's over. The bad news is, the podcast, not the pain that we feel. That was the liberals. Living in the liberal brain is a scary idea. I don't know if I could literally do it. How do you even think that way? How does it not cross your mind that people need stuff? I don't want to sound elitist or nothing. Do you think? Okay, so I know we're saying, oh, we're leftists or whatever. All right, it's just us here, right? Do you think it's just some humans are dumb and can't figure out the real reason for problems to varying degrees? And as you can't figure out the reasons to problems, you're more the worse, you're further to the right. And as you can diagnose the issues and the problem, you're further to the left. It's really kind of just that. Because it's not really anything other than just let's follow the clues. Let's follow the clues and see where. If the answer was for instance, I don't know, the lizard people. That's what I would talk about. I would talk about the lizard people. Don't fall for not eugenics. No, I think we might just be smarter or something. I don't know. I don't even know if you have to be smarter. I don't even know what it is. It's just like we have the answers to questions. Let's just enact the good stuff. But we don't. We never do.